Adding vendors in QuickBooks Online. The quick way or the quick explanation is to simply go to Expenses in QuickBooks Online and click on Vendors and click the new vendor button, the green one on the upper right. Enter as much information as possible about the vendor, save, and the new vendor should appear in your list below. If you need to enter a lot of new vendors, then you'll probably want to import their information. You do that by clicking the little drop down arrow by new vendors and click import vendors. You'll be taken to this screen where you can browse for your list, your Excel document with the vendors, and click next. Map your fields, make sure what your fields are match what QuickBooks expects them to be or needs them to be. Click next. You get one last chance to edit everything, all the different fields, and click import. And that's the quick answer. So now we can talk about adding vendors a little more in depth. Okay, so there's two basic reasons that you would want to add vendors to QuickBooks Online. And the first is because you want to save time entering the information about vendors on purchase forms. If you have vendors saved, and then you can just choose them from a drop-down menu. All the information you entered on that vendor information screen will automatically populate. Things like address, terms, those sorts of things. So it'll save you time. Second of all, it gives you opportunity to run reports about your vendors. For instance, how much you've spent on each individual vendor. So we'll go a little more in depth in adding vendors here, and we'll start off with adding individual vendors. And like I said, the first step is, of course, to navigate to the vendor screen, which is the left-hand menu, Expenses, Vendors, and then click New Vendor. Like I said, when new vendors added, it'll show up in the list below. So, as I said, Expenses, Vendors, click Add a New Vendor. And you'll get the vendor information screen here. And one too far. Okay, so most of these fields are pretty self-explanatory. The first field's company. Now, if your vendor is an individual, not a company, you can enter just the first and last name here. These fields here are more if you had like a contact, maybe a salesperson or something at the vendor company. But if it's just an individual, enter first and last name here. Display name as, this is where you can change the way it's displayed. If you want it to display to something different from the company, you can specify that there. The print on check as option allows you to change how the name will be displayed, the vendor's name on the checks that you issue to them for payment. If you want that to be something different besides the company name, specify that here. Address, obviously, pretty self-explanatory. Notes, okay. This is information that you can enter about the vendor that will only be seen by people in your company. So the vendor won't see this, and you can enter anything that you feel is appropriate, or that somebody who's working with your books might need to know or need a reference about this particular vendor. Attachments, this is where you can attach files, such as maybe a PDF of a W-9 or contracts or anything else that's specific to this vendor and that you want to be able to readily find. Let's see, information, email, phone number, fax number, all that, website, all self-explanatory. We got a couple of fields here Now on this screen, you only see billing rate. In other instances, you might see cost rate. Information about these was a little tough to come by, but here's my interpretation. First of all, the billing rate, this is if the vendor provides a service. So an example might be a lawyer, okay? Um, in that case, they bill by the hour. So you would enter whatever that rate may be, $100, $200, $300, whatever. The cost rate will only appear, I think, if you have activated projects for your company, okay? And then if the vendor is a contractor. So again, information was a little hard to find on that, but it's only a field that will be used under certain circumstances. Terms is pretty straightforward. These are the default payment terms that this vendor has. You can always change these, when you enter on the purchase form to what the actual terms are. But if they're going to consistently give you the same terms, then you can, have this information populate automatically. Opening balance and the as of date for that opening balance are usually going to be left blank. QuickBooks recommends that you leave it blank because there will be no details about the balance captured, no transactions that will add up to equal that balance. If you do enter an amount here, it's going to increase your accounts payable and decrease your opening balance equity. Okay, so keep that in mind if you're bringing in an opening balance. QuickBooks recommends, entering the transactions and creating a balance that way. Account number. Okay, so this is the vendor's number for your business. And put an apostrophe in there. Vendor's number for your business, and it'll show up as a memo on a check. So this isn't your number for the vendor, it's the vendor's number for you. Okay. Business ID number, this would be an employment identification number or a social security number that is used when you create a 1099 for this vendor. If you create a 1099, if you do plan on creating a 1099, you'll want to check this track payments for 1099 box, okay? Because that will make sure this vendor is included when you run the 1099 wizard. As a rule of thumb, if maybe intuitively this is a 1099 vendor, maybe not. If you're new to this, kind of the rule of thumb for issuing a 1099 is when you're purchasing services from this particular vendor, and if they're unincorporated. Okay, if they meet both those, check both those boxes, then you're probably going to be issuing a 1099. So let's look at the second method of creating new vendors, and that's importing a vendor list. And again, to do that, it's this new vendor button, except you're going to click the little drop down arrow and select the import vendors. Okay. What I recommend you do before you make up this list in Excel of your vendors and all their information is to download this sample file. You click here, and then you're going to get a sample file that looks something like this. And the reason I recommend that is because all of your fields are going to be laid out for you here. Okay, it's basically a template for your upload, and that'll just make the process of uploading this information that much easier. So you'll get a file that looks like this. You want to go through, select all this dummy information, so to speak, and delete it. Okay, and then re-enter the information about your particular vendors. once you've done that and save it, you can browse for that file. Select it, and then you'll click Next. Okay, so then it's going to come to this map data step, and you're going to compare your fields to the QuickBooks Online fields. Make sure they're the same. In most cases, usually QuickBooks Online is smart enough to know what's what, but just make sure you don't have a fax number going to a phone number, or something else. A field, one of your fields going to the wrong field in QuickBooks Online. If you're okay with all of that, click Next, and you'll go to the import step. And this is one last chance to edit any of this information for all your different vendors. See, for instance, down here we've got this note that was included as a vendor. Okay, so we would just check that to not include it, and in this case we should be good to go. Click Import. It'll tell you how many of the total were successfully imported, and you'll see them all down here in your vendor list. Okay, so that is it. Those are the two main ways to add new vendors to QuickBooks Online. And if you don't have time to DIY your bookkeeping, maybe you don't enjoy the bookkeeping aspect. A lot of people don't. Maybe you'd like to work more on your business more than data entry, work on increasing sales, helping your business grow, and less time on bookkeeping, then take a look at BotKeeper. BotKeeper is a company I found. Apparently it's a Google-backed startup, and what it does is uses AI to handle a lot of the bookkeeping, and then uses your people to kind of where necessary, I guess is the way they put it. My understanding is you can take as much control or as little as you want over it, of what you have BotKeeper do for you. And I know that it also ties in with QuickBooks Online. So if you like the QuickBooks Online interface and want to be able to run reports, or used to it or that, then, again, you can use BotKeeper to handle some of the things that can be easily automated, the menial transactions, so to speak. So there is a link for that down in the description to learn more. From what I looked up about the company, it's really well reviewed on Capterra and other sites. So if your bookkeeping is driving you crazy, you might check that out. Anyhow, if you thought this video was fairly short and to the point, but detailed enough to give you information that you needed, give it a like. And if you'd like to not worry about searching around on other QuickBooks Online topics, and save time, you can subscribe, click on my channel. I'll have other QuickBooks Online videos up, and hopefully you can